Hey, I wanted to talk about days on market and how long it takes to sell a house because this is something that I hear about a lot from sellers when they're talking about listing their house and selling their house. And they ask about different realtors and how long their listings on average are on the market for before they get a contract, before they close escrow, which in realtor world is known as DOM or days on market. And so I just wanted to talk about that really quick because there's a couple of different ways of looking at that. And one methodology says, of course, the fewer days on market, the better, right? So the faster you can sell your house, the better. And that's one way of looking at it, but there's certainly other ways of looking at it, and that's not necessarily always the case. So there's a lot of different reasons why people decide that they need to sell their house. And it would be very simplistic if we approached every single client in exactly the same way. And so it's my job when I'm working with a new client or a new family to understand what their goals are, how quickly they need to sell their house, how much they need to sell their house for. They may have a target equity amount that they need to achieve in order to buy that next home, to have enough down payment for the type of home they're looking to purchase, or for other expenses that they have going on. So everybody's situation is very, very different. Sometimes we have clients who want to list a home and they want to put their house on the market and they have plenty of time to wait. And so they want to start on a high end and then slowly drop the price down to where the market will accommodate the price. We have other people who tell us that they need to relocate to another state, and so therefore they need to have their house sold in X number of days and closed in Y number of days. And so therefore, we come up with a different schedule because the value of a house, that dollar amount, is only a dollar amount within a certain time frame, right? So just because you put your house on the market and somebody might be willing to pay X for that house doesn't mean that that buyer who's willing to pay that amount is going to come along on day one on the market. So it's really important to remember that time also plays a factor into price and pricing strategy. And we have clients with, an abundantly large range of needs. And it's not our job to tell our clients what their goals are, what their needs are. It's our job to serve our clients in the place where they are currently and to listen to them and to understand what it is that they need. So, there are some professionals out there who will only take listings if clients list at a certain price because they want it to sell within a certain time period and talk about, my listings are on the market for Y number of days and I have this average and that kind of stuff. And that's great, good for them. And that may work really well for that specific subset of clients that want to sell within that period of time. My philosophy is that everybody who needs to sell their house needs a consultant and somebody who can help them to do that within the time frame or within the parameters that they have set and that they have communicated to me. And it's my job to help them figure out how to make that happen based on what their goals are and based on what their time frame is. So I'm not in the business of telling people how quickly they have to sell their house or how quickly they need to sell their house. There's a lot of other things to consider as well. For example, if somebody needs longer for their house to close or to sell because they need time to home shop, or they need time to clean stuff out of storage, or they need time to do any number of different things. It's really important, I feel, at least in how I run my business, to be responsive to clients and to their needs and to what they have going on in their life. So hopefully that explains days on market a little bit better for anybody who's kind of wondering, well, how long does it take to sell a home and how does that affect price? Hopefully that explains that a little bit better about why we don't necessarily obsess about days on market. When a house sells really quickly, of course, we're certainly proud of that. But we want to make sure that at the same time, if something is selling too quickly in a particular market, that doesn't mean that it's sold for too low. And there's, again, in terms of what's too high or too low, there are a number of different variables that go into that, including time of year, in particular area. So just as an example, there was a listing that was in my neighborhood, and I live in a neighborhood where the lots are bigger, there's no HOA, and there's a lot of horse properties, there's a lot of people, it's much more country living. And so the buyer pool for those particular type of properties is much smaller than the buyer pool for typical residential neighborhoods. And so we expect to see houses on the market for longer. And when we see houses in that particular, small subset of the market, when we see houses in that particular part of the market having multiple offers within 2 days, that's an indication to me that they probably were priced too low. So that's always something to think about, and that's why it's important to really have a full conversation about what your goals are, not just about the dollar amount, but the time period and what your eventual goals are after you close escrow on that sale. Any questions about days on market or home sales, definitely feel free to send me a message, and I would love to chat about it. Thanks.